all project-based work, and they don't always work on exactly the same project at the same time. So it's very interesting for me that they chose Scrum, and they decided that that was going to be a better fit for them.
Yeah. That's awesome. Very cool. Well, hey, everybody joining us so far. Oh, wait. Oh, my monitor's being funny. Hey, everybody joining us so far. We are right at the hour, and we'll be starting here very shortly with Colleen once we get a few more minutes into this. So we will be starting square on the hour, and that way we'll just be fielding questions until we get in there. I'm going to duplicate my display. That's what I need to do for my PowerPoint. Oh, PowerPoint. So yes, so we will be getting started here in 5 minutes with the content, 4 now, but just stand by as we get up and running. I did start the recording, so yay. I remembered.
I was about to ask you to do that.
I'm glad you did. We have 21 people on, or 21 connections at the moment. I see a Slack message from Heidi, one of our other co-hosts. She is a call-in user, but Heidi, I don't know which call-in user you are, so I don't know which one to unmute. I apologize. That's no good. Let me make this full screen. So Heidi will be joining in via the call-in, but we'll see if we can figure out which call-in user she is. And I see Jeff is joining as well, but he is attempting to connect with us.
I can see Jeff's video.
Oh, yeah, Jeff's video is there. Awesome. Hi there, Jeff. See if he gets, oh, he's on mute. We can unmute. Are you there now?
Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Got you in there. Howdy.
Excellent.
Very good, very good. Have you, Jeff, have you met Colleen yet? You guys talked very much?
Not in person. We've exchanged a whole lot of digital correspondence. Hi, Colleen.
Hi, Jeff. How are you?
Great. Yourself?
I'm very good. Actually, I think you're forgetting when we did meet in person. I think you were in South Florida area about a year ago. And you spoke about Agile failure modes.
That's correct. Yes, I did at that time. That is correct. I spoke to the project management group down there, yes.
That is correct. And I believe they've changed their name, too. They used to be the project management group, and now they're the project management and Agile practitioners group. So,
okay.
Ooh, I like it.
Further evidence that, you know, Agile is taking over the world.
That's exciting. Very exciting. But we've got about 1 minute till we'll get kicked off with our content here. I see we have 15 in the teleconference, 24 people connected right now. So thank you, everybody, for joining. We're about to jump in shortly. And again, Heidi, somewhere out there in the sea of call-in users, I apologize that I can't see which one you are to unmute you. So.
Yeah, and have no fear, anyone that's on, if you haven't been through this model before, we usually give a buffer on the front end and a buffer on the back end. It's a kind of a facilitation best practice to give people time to join and get out of their last meetings and get to their next meeting. So,
yes, we sure do. So we'll actually get into that then. Let's let me refresh here.
I'll tell you what, man, that always makes me feel pretty good, knowing that I have this meeting and we do that, which is why I adopted it as a best practice. Just like today, I had a meeting earlier today, and like right as soon as 2 o'clock hit, I have IMs coming up. Where are we at? You know, and sometimes you have to wait for people to leave a conference room before you can get in to start. And it's almost kind of nerve-wracking because you got people like chomping at the bit to go. And you kind of need that 5-minute boot up period, you know?
Yep, yep,
yeah,
exactly right.
And I used to work for Freddie Mac back in the day, and we called that the Freddie 5 because they had 4 buildings, and we had to walk in between buildings, and it took at least 10 minutes to walk in between building number 1 and building number 4. So One of the things we've done, and this is in line with Agile and Lean principles, is we eliminate the waste in meetings by doing CD meetings, which is something that Google came out with a few years back, that any 1-hour meeting is actually scheduled for 50 minutes, and a 30-minute meeting is scheduled for 25, so that someone can say, hey, we're over time. It forces us as facilitators to be very, very, very efficient.
Excellent. Well, here I'll run through the agenda for today. For everybody who's joining us in the Eastern time zone, these are the correct times for you. If you're joining us from the Central time zone, you're off by about an hour there. So 4 to 4:05, give everybody 5 minutes to join the call. We've done that. We're going to do right now the 5-minute kickoff, 4:05 to 4:10. Quick glance of who and how many are with us, what this all about and how it works, and we'll talk a little about the WebEx functionality. Then we're going to jump into our main topic. We'll have Q&A at the end, and we're looking to close, like Jeff had mentioned, at 5 minutes till to give everybody time to get to any future meetings or to prepare for whatever is next in your daily agenda. So real fast, I'll just read for us our goal as a coaching Agile journeys. What are we all about? We are a group committed to living our Agile journey together to the fullest. We're dedicated to finding highly focused topics to help escalate the development of each of our Agile coaching journeys. We're interested in transparency, inspection, and adaptation, like good Agilists are, and our goal is to find topics that Agile coaches tend to be routinely challenged with so we can dive into those. And I think we have a topic along those lines today. The we is Jeff and Heidi and myself are facilitating as the supporters of this group, but then we are a group made by the people for the people, so we want to make sure that anybody who wants to be connected, has an idea for a future topic, or even recommendations for how we can do things better, we want to hear your voice, so please don't feel like a stranger. We're excited that we're launching our website to kind of bring our community together. So if you haven't been to it yet, it's coachingagilejourneys.com. And from there, you can actually subscribe to our mailing list and be connected with us. And if you have any questions, you can email us at coachingagile@gmail.com. So if you have any thoughts or changes or recommendations, we'd love to hear from you, because this isn't just us doing this. We're just facilitating the community. And that's what I love so much about this community. It's so active. Do you want to say a word on that, Jeff?
If I can, if I can inject real quick, this is meant for people everywhere, too. I mean, it doesn't matter. As long as you can get on this WebEx webinar, it doesn't matter. A lot of the meetups are regional. You know, a lot of the trainings tend to be regional, or people fly in. And the other thing is you'll get a lot of invites from a lot of different sources where it's kind of advertising based. You know, they're backing a product or some sort of organization, and what we are is just an organization of best practices, and Isaac said it right, it's journey. So we're all in this journey together, and we find people from this journey that have really good experiences or something that's really unique, and we bring them to the table. So feel free to share us out, feel free to invite other people, and you know, we're all in this to learn together, and use these contacts right here to contact us at any time with a question, and we'll try to help get that question answered or facilitate it in any way, or even if you want to, you know, speak one time, just let us know.
Awesome. Fantastic. Well, we're doing good on time. We've got about 1 minute. Got a quick quote of the day for us. Don't worry about failures. Worry about the chances you miss when you don't even try. Jack Canfield said that. So with that being said, we're going to jump in. By the way, I'll segue on that for the 20 seconds that we have left. That's how we started. I remember Jeff and I talking about this a while back, but what if we do this, and what if we start without a website? And we just said, you know what? We just need to jump in and start. And so we started with nothing, and here we are 6 in. This is our 6th one. And so we're glad that you're here with us for today's content. So that being said, we're going to pass over the ball to Colleen now, who is going to talk a little bit about herself and introduce her topic. But we're excited about hearing about flipping Agile. So Colleen, I'll make you the presenter, and Jeff and I'll go quiet. And oh, by the way, one last thing while Colleen's sharing her screen out, if you have any questions you want to add for the question and answers, or have anything you want to chat during it, Jeff and I will be monitoring the chat. So we'll be there if you need any help throughout the webinar. Other than that, Colleen, it's all yours.
Absolutely. And, you know, speaking of journeys, I've definitely been on one. Some people would think of the term flipping Agile as being something that I do, which is I've used Agile to renovate and resell. At this point, it's about 6 different properties, and they're not all homes, but the majority of them have been. But other people who are either new to Agile or have heard about Agile, might even be a little afraid of Agile, might call it flipping Agile. So you can interpret this however you want to. But this whole speech is about my career that I kind of stumbled upon. It's a side job, it's a second profession, and it was not something that I ever intended to do. But I jumped in. I decided to try something, and as a result, I've turned it into something that was much more than I ever thought that it could be. So I started my career as a realtor. I just want to preface that. I do have some knowledge of that particular industry. But poor market conditions and, to be frank, I'm not the greatest salesperson, convinced me to move into information technology. It was a better fit for me, for my personality, for my skill set. My husband and I don't flip for a living. That's not why we do this. We do it to provide an alternative income source while we're living in a much nicer home than we could afford if we bought it fully renovated. And I'm going to show you a few of those homes during this, as well as talking about what I've learned. Welcome to Flipping Agile. And I have this sub, how to remodel your future, because it has remodeled mine. It's not just about remodeling homes. It's not just about making money for me. It's all about some learning and growing experiences and changing what my future is going to look like as a result. So you're probably familiar with the Agile values, individuals and interactions, several process and tools, as well as working software for comprehensive documentation. The ever so important customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. Well, we took those principles and took a look at them, and we flipped them. Family and flexibility. Well, I'm a recovering PMP. I have a lot of respect for people who are PMPs currently, who are PMPs who are trying to transition into Agile. But the one thing that I know about myself, and I'm not going to speak for anyone else, is that I may or may not have a few control issues. So I have to learn, and I've had to learn, to place my family as more important and more valuable than my way and these fabulous tools that I can show them how to use. The other thing that's more important for me and more valuable is a non-leaking roof over, well, our heads. The perfect house. I love to have a clean home. So I've had to learn to live in an area where perhaps it's not going to be perfect. Perhaps it's not going to be clean, but we're going to meet our overall goal. And yes and, I don't know if you've heard that concept of yes and, but the idea of yes and is a collaborative exercise where you take one person's idea and you add to it by saying, yes, yes, I hear your idea, and I'd like to do this as well. And eventually you come to something much better than either of you could have ever thought of on your own. And then the last value that we use is exactly like the software development Agile that you probably know right now. Responding to change over following a plan, because there's this adage that anything that can go wrong will go wrong. That holds true, especially in home renovation. And most people call that Murphy's Law, but I call that Murphy Bites. So when you get to this point where you're going to have to respond to something that changes, what I do is I take a breath, I think for a little while, and then I respond instead of react to whatever happens. My first round, also known as how did I stumble into this? Well, I bought a home and it needed some work, but I didn't know it. The home was actually in pretty good shape in a decent area, but had outdated features. The things I didn't know, just like with any project, is there's going to be some unknown unknowns. It frequently flooded outside the back door to the slope of the backyard. And there was some sort of problem with a sewer backup at some point. I did some minor changes. I added some river rocks around a small koi pond to deal with the fact that we had drainage issues, and some other minor repairs. I didn't do a whole lot in this home, but it had pretty good market conditions. And I also learned plenty of lessons about home ownership and setting aside enough funds for repairs. There was also a side benefit for this one. I met and fell in love with my handyman during all of the projects he helped me complete. He wasn't a handyman by profession, but he was really, really handy. And you can see the actual benefit from a financial perspective. I invested about $6,000. I grossed about $110,000, and I walked away with over $90,000. Then I got to Agile. Now that first house, it was all about managing the projects and keeping it within a specific timeline and making sure that our scope was met. So I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I did it. But in 2006, I actually had my first experience with Modified Agile. And when I say Modified Agile, what that company allowed us to do, I worked for Freddie Mac, the teams were allowed to create proof of concepts and come up with their design and iterate on that design based on the results of the proof of concept before finalizing the development and testing timeline. They called it measure 3 times and cut it once. During that period, I actually bought this home. So being the good project manager and PMP that I was at the time, I realized that it was going to be quite a project. We had about 6 weeks to renovate and move in. But right around that same time, I started using Agile full-time. This house actually had an unloaned backside. Most improvements appeared to be cosmetic. We knew before we walked in we were going to have to repair some drywall and do some painting and flooring. And because I was all gung-ho about this Scrum thing, I actually used Scrum, the value-based user stories. We wrote those stories from a current or future owner perspective. And my family got on board. Now, they didn't really get on board with the whole Agile thing, but they did help renovate and repair the home. We did a lot of negotiation at that point. And you can see we did have a benefit. I invested about $12,000 into that house, and I walked away with over $80,000. I'm going to show you a little bit about the lessons I learned while I was doing this. So the first is our kitchen. I learned all about incremental delivery and refactoring throughout this phase. So the kitchen went through multiple improvements. That top left that you're seeing here was actually the original. The kitchen was very dated, even for the time that I was purchasing it. And it had this really beautiful, thick butcher block countertop. And I took a look at the kitchen and I realized that with a very small change, because we didn't have a whole lot of money at that point, we could just change the appearance of these bricks. We did a little bit of what they call sponge painting and make it feel a little bit more old world. We wanted to replace the flooring, we wanted to do a whole lot of things, and we wanted to do hardwoods to improve the resale, but my husband didn't like the fact that we were going to do hardwoods in the kitchen. And way back when I didn't know any better, I would write a user story as a current owner, I would like hardwoods in my kitchen so that I can resell my home. I learned very quickly that we had to have more of a goal to improve the quality of our life in this home as well as the resale potential for the home. So we moved to tile. Okay, that's fine. I'll let go of exactly what I want and how we're going to implement it, but it's got to be tile. And in the end, what we realized is there was actually an imperfection in the subfloor of that home that would have required that the cost to put tile in would have greatly exceeded the benefit that we were going to receive. And with our shared understanding, we made a decision to use luxury vinyl tiles. That's what you see in this lower right-hand corner. It was less effort, but not necessarily cost, but kept us from having to redo the entire subfloor. Then we went into time box iteration. So the living room had this strange box. You'll see this up on the upper left-hand corner here. and had a really interesting bathroom that was in the basement. I don't have any pictures of it, but what they had done, they had actually built up a bathroom that was 4.5 steps below the basement floor. We thought this was going to be our very first thing after we got into the house, so we prioritized that third. But when we took a look at what was actually done, we realized that the previous owners had cut the floor joist, which made removing this box much more complex and expensive. And taking a look at the value we were going to get versus the effort to actually deliver this, we decided that perhaps we should try to slice the story. But there's no way to slice the story without living with a hole in the floor or no flooring. So we pushed it down in priority, and it actually stayed there for about 2 years. We used it for a TV for a while, then for pictures, and even a small Christmas tree one year. Several years later, when it finally made it to the top of our priority list, we had enough money and we had enough time. We did a 2-week time box before Christmas 2012, and we bundled it actually with putting new hardwoods in to this living room. We refinished the living room, the family room, and removed a wall that blocked the kitchen from the dining room. And I'm going to show you, I think you're going to see that in a future slide. And my husband and I did most of this work ourselves, but in some cases, we were smart enough to subcontract this work out. So these floors here, don't worry, I didn't break my back on there. We had a contractor come in and do that. We were always thinking, though, especially since I had made the money in the house before that, we were always thinking about how can we maximize our benefit, how can, especially in a down market, can we get to a point where we're looking at our future potential. And then the market chose not to recover. This is years 3 and 4 of owning this particular home. This is what I call Murphy bites. We never expected that the market would take years to recover. And we realized we had to make some changes. So enter the wonderful Shuha Re. For those who don't know what this means, it's very simple. I mean, there's different ways to actually translate Shuha Re, but the way that I translate it in my own mind is, Shu is to learn the rules of whatever it is that you're doing. Ha is break those rules when appropriate. And then Re is set the rules. Set the rules that are applicable to you. And when we're talking about organizations, that's what it is. You want to meet the organization where they are as an Agile coach. Something like Scrum is very effective, and it can be a wonderful framework, and I'm a big believer in Scrum. As a matter of fact, not only am I a PMP, and I mentioned recovering in the beginning, but I'm also a certified Scrum Master and a certified Scrum Professional, and working on my certified team coach. But our organizations are not all in the same place. As a coach, we need to see where they are currently, and we need to find those things that are going to be more effective for them. And so learning this in my own personal life has made it possible for me to be able to apply this as an Agile coach. In many ways, it wasn't just the market downturns. It was also that our original time box iterations were about 1 month. In that first month, before we moved in, we completed all the painting and the new hardwoods, and then we moved in. We did what we needed to do to make the home livable. But we also learned that 1 month time boxes allowed us to procrastinate, and actually we missed our commitment. Me, an Agile coach, I wasn't at the time, I was a Scrum Master, but still, a Scrum Master, I missed my own commitment. So what we did, as you do for any time, you're missing your commitment, you must shorten your iterations. We shortened them to 2 weeks, but priority shifts, that new and shiny factor I call Pinterest, and too many things in progress at one time still kept us from consistently meeting our commitment. And then this Murphy time, we had this market slowdown, something called a super derecho, which down here in Florida where I live now, we just call a thunderstorm, but right outside DC, we actually called it a super derecho, which means a massive thunderstorm, causing trees to fall on our home and my car and, things like that, putting putting some wind through the house. That all slowed down everything that we planned on doing. And we fought. My family and I fought like crazy when we were doing Scrum. It was actually, at times, it was something that I thought was going to tear us apart. And I thought, like many organizations do, that I was going to give up Agile in what I was doing in my home. And then I discovered Kanban. So Kanban is the board type that many Scrum teams use. But the concept of Kanban, which is a continuous pull and flow, especially applying WIP limits, work in progress limits, allowed for Murphy time and for us to have fun. As a family, we were losing track of what was really important, family and flexibility. That's when that became our value statement over my way. My way is not important. Keeping my family together is much more valuable for me than any sort of money in the world and even Agile itself in my mind. So we looked at what we could do that was going to be lower cost and higher value and much easier on us. As you can see on this left-hand side, that's the original stairs. The stairs were kind of a burgundy color and they had carpet on them. My husband and I, that was our first time working together, like side by side on a project, decided that we were going to rip up that carpet and we were going to repaint the stairs. And the result is what's on the right. We repurposed where possible. That's where refactoring comes into play. You know, when you're refactoring your code, you're taking something that was already done, you're making some tweaks to it, you're making it better, and you're coming out with something that's much more workable. Well, you can see this fan with this beautiful pinky coral room. This is a white fan. It's not a bad fan, but we decided we were going to go with a grayer color. Gray is kind of my thing now. And so we used the same fan. We just painted it. The stairs and the fan together cost us about $50. We also did some work to our patio because we decided that as a family we needed more fun time, and in Virginia it can get quite cold. So we put in a patio with a nice little fire pit, and we had a seating wall. And I mentioned earlier that we did put hardwoods in when we first moved into the house. This is not the same room I showed before. Here's what the room looked like when we moved in. We had already made some changes. We opened up a wall. You can see that there's a wall that's open here, much wider opening than what we had initially, and then there's a wall that you cannot see that we opened up as well. But something as simple as new lighting, which we installed for under $25. And then I realized that the Northern Virginia weather was not going to work for Colleen anymore. It wasn't just that I don't like winter. I've never liked winter. It was that I really was having some serious health problems when I got into temperatures under 50 degrees. I have respiratory issues. I had to find a different solution. So we did this last-minute prep to sell the home because I started looking for a job in South Florida, and I found one in 3 weeks. And 2 weeks later, I moved to South Florida. So we had about 2 weeks to finish whatever projects we needed to do to get the house ready for sale. And I don't know if anyone can tell, but there's actually several things on this particular slide that are very similar. I pointed this out to Isaac before. He noticed right away that the shower looks exactly the same, and indeed it is. He thought that the flooring was the same, but, and this is a bit dark, but this is actually the old 80s flowery kind of flooring, and this particular flooring is the same tile that we put into our kitchen. We put in a new vanity, you can tell that just by looking at it. But we kept the medicine cabinets. They are exactly the same, even though they look completely different. We trimmed off a little on the top here, made it nice and square, a lot more modern looking, and we painted it all. And then the other thing we did is we updated the kitchen with granite. You know, I showed that in a previous slide. As a matter of fact, I'll pop back so you guys can see. here. There's that kitchen. We put in a new backsplash, finally got rid of the brick, and decided that granite was a better option. I mentioned that we decided to move to Kanban. But by nature and in my heart, I'm a project manager. I'm actually a very good one. I'm very good with projects. I do projects much differently than I used to. So when we were trying to take a look at how we could make sure we had more fun, we did more than just the patio in the backyard and moving to Kanban. We actually bought a trailer. So this was our third renovation. We bought this trailer in 2011, and we actually renovated it because it was a bit ugly. We moved from that 70s trailer with a beautiful flowered print to something that was a little bit more beachy because we started spending a lot more time at the beach. And one thing that you may or may not notice that's similar is this flooring. It's exactly the same flooring. One thing renovators do is once they find something that works, they'll use it over and over again. We had this goal when we bought this, to enjoy time with our family as they were growing up. Our family was growing up and they were moving on. Us, we've always been campers. We love to go camping, and we had backs that couldn't handle an air mattress on the ground anymore. We didn't pay a whole lot for the trailer. We didn't pay a whole lot for the renovation, but we learned that sometimes you cannot place a price on your family, on the fun that you will have and the memories that you will make with your family. That's been part of my journey. So, renovation number 4. At this point, we started to realize that we were actually pretty good at this, and we were making some money at it, so we bought another home. We rented it for a couple of years, and then we decided to sell it. And when we made that decision to sell the home, it had actually gotten into pretty bad shape. The carpet was in really rough shape. And at that point, we were full on Kanban. That was the only thing we used. But we also realized that if you don't put some sort of time box on how much effort you're willing to spend, you have a tendency to, just always continue to go. And for us, sometimes we had to put a time box on. We did a 1-week time box in this particular renovation. We had 1 senior and 3 junior team members. And by that, I mean my husband and 3 young adults. Only my husband had any sort of construction or renovation experience. He and I together, because at this point we had gotten very good about doing any sort of renovation, coming up with a backlog, prioritizing that backlog. We did it together. We had a 40-item backlog, and we prioritized the top 35 and actually assigned it out because we had a very limited time frame based on the skill level. Some of our teenagers had a bit more experience, just like this much more experience than others. But during the actual renovation, my husband allowed reassignment to encourage volunteerism because nothing makes someone motivated like being able to volunteer for whatever work they want to volunteer for. He still went in order of priority, but he would say, hey, we've got this thing, you're free, are you willing to do it? And sometimes they would say, yes, I think I can do that. And other times they would say, no, I think that's best for you. And he would say, okay, here's the next thing. Would you like to do this? At the end of that 1 week, we completed 38 items. We actually discovered things during the remodel that we didn't expect to have to do. So those 38 items included 9 new improvements that were not expected. And the other items didn't get done. Well, that's Agile as well. We ended up realizing that it wasn't that important that we install a new dishwasher in this home. The home wasn't actually worth all that much money. And instead, we invested in another area where there did need to be a change. We ended up making about $16,000 on this home. And even better, we were in an economically depressed market in this particular area. And we were paying for a home that we could not rent, so we got out of that. Our benefit was Not only did we make a little bit of money, but we also got out of that tough situation. My husband at this point knew this is something he really could do. When we moved to Florida, we had another home. This is renovation number 5 for those who are keeping track. Matter of fact, the slide says it, so it makes it easy. We had about a month to make it livable. At least that's what we thought we were going to do. 1 month initial renovation, and within 3 months, all repairs were complete. We did a little bit of changing, though, as we always do. Shirharing, we love to change things. So our priority 1 was get 1 bedroom painted and a closet fixed so we could move out of a trailer we were in, because we had a neighbor who had a Harley, and he liked to leave at midnight every night and come home around 2 in the morning, and that was making a big difference with my sleep pattern and not making me a very happy person. And I'm always about the happiness factor, not only with me, but with my family. So that became our first priority. We thought we were going to wait a month to move in because we had a place to live. Within a weekend, we were in this house. Then we moved on to priority 2, which is to finish painting the main living spaces. And 3 weeks after purchase, we had all of the flooring completed so we could host our family for spring break. This is the same room. This top left, well, the top lower left is actually the original flooring, which looks nice, but trust me, it was not. This is the glue that was left after the flooring was taken up, and then this is the new flooring that we put in. We learned so much about reprioritization and being able to do things very quickly by having this limit. That big shiny thing, that doesn't happen so much anymore. I won't say that it never happens. There are often times where we'll say, hey, it would be really cool if. But what we've learned to do is, instead of saying, let's go start that thing, we say, it would be really cool if, and we put it in our backlog. Then we moved down to our next priority, which was to complete the other areas of the house. This ugly black lagoon got done very quickly, and I'm going to show you pictures. This was what became our man cave. It was originally a garage, our dock. Remember I told you that flooring wasn't so pretty? Well, there were actually missing pieces to the flooring. With this particular house, we were learning more and more about how to work together, about how to do things that mattered, about how to recover from things that didn't go the way that we expected them to. And those same rooms, 2 years later, we decided to sell the home. We bought a boat, and I think you can tell from this top left, it's actually a boat in the background. We live off the Intracoastal, but we learned that this particular boat wouldn't go underneath the bridges when they were above mid-tide. So these last stories in our backlog were all about presentation, finishing the man cave, making it pretty, power washing the pool deck here, replacing the boards on the dock so that they look nicer and were safer, and making this master bedroom look absolutely awesome, new drapes, things like that. When we put this house on the market, we were in not a great marketplace down here in South Florida. Some homes sell quickly, others do not. I was in an area that when we bought the home, I had a family member who told me that they forbade me to buy the house because they said we'd never sell it. And within 2 weeks, we were under contract. Our first contract actually, it fell out, but we had it back up. So we ended up selling that home. And here's the benefit. We doubled our investment. We invested about $65,000 in this home, and we walked away with over $120,000. As I mentioned, every single time we did a renovation, we learned a little bit more. We learned what we were capable of, At this point, I would say that my family is a hyper-productive team. We've done 5 remodels. Well, actually, we've done 6. This home is our latest and largest remodel. We saw the home when we were floating around on the Intercoastal one day. We rode up behind it and said, "Whew, that house is ugly." And then we saw a picture of it online and realized that this is something we could possibly do. It looks really pretty from here. But that blue roof, that's actually its heart. This home was our riskiest. It was the biggest. And we almost lost the home after foreclosing delays. We found out that it was meant to be, and we ended up closing in September. From appearance, it doesn't look too bad. It's dated, but not in bad shape. My daughter's teenage friends actually called it that 70s house because of all the, what I thought was beautiful wood all around the house, all these wood accents. And these are actually the dining room and living room from the pictures that you would find online if you were to search for my house today. But in reality, this is what the agent didn't want people to see. That blue tarp on the roof was the roof that had actually failed. This picture on the left is the living room entry flooring, which was damaged beyond repair. And the back of the house is where most of the damage was. The roof had failed back there, and we actually were living with a pool in our sunroom. And this, what you're seeing here, well, that's the room you see behind me. As we went through this renovation, we realized that there was a lot of mold. We expected it because we've seen mold before, we've dealt with mold before. And as one flipper told me, mold is gold, because nobody wants to deal with it, but we do. I want to show you a little bit about what we've learned together. We've learned one thing, which is to make it simple. And there's a really absolutely fabulous Agile coach out there. His name is Amitai. He has a podcast. If you ever have a chance to listen to it, it's Agile in 3 minutes. He says the simplest solution is always the best, and always look for the simplest solution possible that could possibly work. What he's always looking for. So we found this thing that allows us to actually put stickies on a note board, kind of like if we had a big wall. And my husband and I created and prioritized the backlog of all of the work that we needed to do on this home. Then we went through what you will see, all of these numbers here, aside from the ones that actually have hours, which we only use, by the way, to kind of validate, not to do an estimate, but to validate that this really is a half a point. All of these numbers, the 1s, the 2s, the 5s, those are all story point estimates because we found he works much faster than I do, and we can agree on effort, complexity, and risk, but we cannot agree on how long it's going to take to do it. So we use this tool to actually create the backlog because it's easy and it's simple. And we eventually transitioned over to Trello. I'm going to show you in a second. And Trello has been the tool that we've used ever since. The tool I showed you earlier made it easy to do that backlog creation prioritization. This one makes it easier to do the scheduling and actually keeping track of what's happened. Also allowed us to slice the stories out. Now, you don't see anything other than titles, but on many of these, there's a lot more detail behind the scenes. And we had to accommodate and adjust and respond to many changes throughout this particular renovation. We expected to close on this home in July. It took till September, I believe I mentioned earlier. And we got the keys on a Monday instead of a Friday, and so many things happened. Hurricane Matthew came through and required that we evacuate. Well, it didn't require, but I'm a wussy, and I had to go. And then we found things that we didn't realize we were going to have to do, like gutting the wall in the master bedroom. But the one thing, and this is part of our journey as coaches as well, is we have to remember we can work really hard and accomplish amazing things, and hyper-productive teams can do that. But there comes a time when you must relax and renew, where you must make sure that you're keeping sustainability at the front. And for us, that's where we are right now. We're in the relax and renew phase. We're not doing anything right now. As a matter of fact, I've turned down an opportunity to assist with a couple different Agile conferences, even though I really wanted to. I didn't just want to help, I wanted to be a part of. I have to allow myself that sustainability. You notice have fun with each other is in here as well. So, let's pull this back up. One more thing. We also evolve. We evolve our backlog. We evolve as we learn things. We evolve the framework that we use. We evolve, we break those rules and we set them every single day. I've learned one thing that I never thought I would have to learn, which is to listen to my team member. We had a team of 3 on this particular renovation, plus several outsourced team members. They did the flooring and the air conditioning in the roof. In the last home that I showed you where we did wood look flooring, my husband wanted to restore the terrazzo because here in South Florida, that's a pretty common thing. Terrazzo is a beautiful natural product, and I didn't. This time I used that yes and principle to come up with this beautifully restored floor. Top right, that's the original floor. Exactly what it looked like. It was filthy and it was ugly. And I never thought that it would be beautiful, but he had that vision. He knew that it could happen. And I listened to him, and we have this beautiful floor as a result. I've also learned that our little team of 3 can do amazing things together. Just 3 people. We painted every single room in our home. Done baseboard and trim and closets, and we fixed damaged drywall everywhere, pull up mountains of flooring, gutted walls, replaced cabinets, installed a microwave, and we're almost done. We've also learned that broken plus Agile can equal beautiful with the right focus on values. We scraped up mountains of glue, not just mountains of flooring. The glue on this floor was something else. It was fierce. And at one point, we didn't think we could do it, but we encouraged each other and we got it done. New laminate, you can see the laminate over on the right. That far right picture is actually where I'm sitting right now. Your baseboard, we made it gorgeous while working full time in 13 weeks. So, lessons that I've learned, and this is where I'm going to turn it back over in a minute. That first lesson, it's usually a lot more than you imagine. In remodels or any other project, anything you do in life, you're going to freak out because it's so big. Don't. Just limit throughput. Because Little's Law proves that if you work on more than one thing at a time, both are going to take longer. So slice your work, whatever it is, small, then smaller. Then finish that. Unless, of course, you really need to wait for paint to dry before doing a second coat. In that case, you can move on to the next wall. Number 3, MVPs are not fun to live in. I've done it twice, trust me. Have compassion for your customers. They're right to be scared. An MVP cannot be fun, but there is absolute value in that MVP. In my case, getting out of a trailer where I was being woken up every night was absolutely worth it. Living in this home while we were renovating it and not paying rent while we paid a mortgage was absolutely worth it. But your customers are going to be scared when you pitch that idea. Expect it. Have empathy. Number 4, use whatever tool possible, any tool, whatever it is, to get it done faster and save your energy. Those stairs that I showed you earlier, the black ones, the really beautiful ones, when you're painting stairs and you have a 2-story house, you have to get to your bedroom somehow. So we learned that there's this really awesome thing called Japanese dryer that we added to the paint that made the paint dry quicker. Use whatever tools you have to. And sometimes it pays to pay. We paid someone to finish the drywall because we were running out of energy and time. If you have to, pay. The last lesson that I've learned throughout all my remodeling is if you keep whatever principles, the Agile principles in focus, you're going to be okay. Plus, living Agile, especially as coaches, having proof that you live Agile makes it much easier to influence others to accept these values and principles. And I'm going to turn it back over to Isaac. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yep, I'm here, and I think Jeff's here too. Jeff, are you here with us? He's going to run our Q&A real fast. We have just a couple minutes, probably 2 minutes for Q&A.
Yeah,
Jeff,
sure. Yeah, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yep, you sound good. Go ahead.
Okay. So yeah, I'm going to bring up, there was a couple questions. I'll bring up one real quick that came up. So Colleen, do you have any examples of pulling in a backlog item that didn't quite work out the way you thought it would, or it failed? How did you respond and adapt to that?
It's a really good question. Okay, examples of pulling in a backlog. Well, I guess the biggest one is we thought we were going to be able to put tile flooring in that kitchen that I showed you. And when we went to go purchase the tile flooring, we realized that there was a slight lump in the floor that was that imperfection that we had to do. So what we did is we regrouped. We said, okay, you know what, that's not going to be possible. Let's go off and figure out what those options are. And what we did is we took that particular story and moved it back to our backlog. We can't accomplish that right now. Let's move on to something we can, or let's do what we can to get that moving forward.
Cool. How often did you bring up that Trello board, or how visible was it to you and your family?
All the time. It was at the start, at the end of every week, if we hadn't looked at it, we would look at it again, and at the start of the next week.
And I got one more thing to touch on. You brought up work in progress limits, and you talked about the inordinate amount of work that you've done and the different things that you've been working on. And at any point, you could have had 6, 7, or 8 home improvement projects going at once. Not to mention the fact that you talked about how the framework was starting to tear apart your family. So how did you re-gear, stay focused on the work in progress limits, and just use the Agile values to put your people and interactions above the framework and the process itself?
So we kind of did retrospectives, only we called them family meetings, and we did this fairly regularly. One thing I did not mention is not only were we renovating houses, but we were raising 6 children. So family meetings were commonplace for us because we would have conflict. It was a natural part of what we were doing. During one of those family meetings, my husband told me he hated what we were doing, and he felt like I was slave driving him, and that we had to find a better solution. So we did. Together, we went off and figured out what was going to be a better solution. It was during that time that we bought the trailer to focus on fun.
Awesome. Well, you know, I'd like to thank you personally on behalf of Isaac and myself and Heidi for taking this opportunity and speaking to the group. And, you know, before everybody adjourns, because we want to make sure we keep on track and give you the 5 minutes back, in a few weeks, we've invited Stephanie Davis from Valpak. And for those of you on the phone or those of you left on the webinar, if you don't know Stephanie Davis, she runs or has been the champion of one of the most mature Agile organizations in the state of Florida in Valpak at that unit of Cox Media. And she's going to share with us her journey on how they got there and what things were like there at Valpak when she came on board and how they went through that transformation. So it's kind of cool, and it's going to be an open question format. We're just going to kind of riff and moderate almost like it's a podcast or a web show. So please join us for that. You're definitely going to hear Stephanie Davis. And is there any, any way anybody can follow you, Colleen, or anything?
I am on Twitter, although I don't post often. I'm also on LinkedIn. So on Twitter,
okay.
It's and Twitter is @theColleen. You can always write to me there, and you can look me up on LinkedIn. It's Colleen Esposito, and I'm in Kaplan Professional Education, because there's a couple of us out there.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And Isaac put up the date, January 31st, 4 to 5 with Stephanie Davis. And like we said, if you have an idea for a future meeting or anything you'd like to be a presenter or whatever it may be, please feel free to contact us. Go to coachingagilejourneys.com to subscribe to our new mailing list. And be sure to answer the post-event survey. We like to inspect and adapt. It's what we believe in, and it's kind of our retrospective when we get your feedback and tell us what you like and what you didn't like or what could work better. So I know Isaac's there, so if Isaac's got something to say, I'm done.
Nope, that's it. Just a big thank you, everybody. We'll see you all at the next one. Do appreciate your time today. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.